So what you're seeing is these are so-called Flora objects, and each one has a certain number of hit points, and this weapon takes hit points away from them, and whenever they get damaged, a hit meter appears. Once that meter hits 0, they explode, as it were, and leave behind these loot particles, these yellow triangles, and a few seconds later, the tree's supposed to be burning or fading or something. Anyway, then you come up and you pick them up, and after you pick them up, they're in your inventory. And I've been picking up wooden planks, and then someday their crafting engine will say, hey, building that house is going to require 2,000 wooden planks. Once a tree, oh, here's one. Once a tree has been around long enough, it starts to bear fruit, which looks just like loot triangles, but that's a fruit loot triangle. There's just one of them there, and they just spontaneously are emitted by a healthy tree periodically during its golden years. I'll go harvest it, which I just have to get close enough. Ooh, I'd hurt the tree a little by bumping into it. In theory, it's momentum based, so if you bump into a tree while you're going really fast, even though you have a low mass relative to the tree, you have a high momentum and can damage a large object by hitting it hard enough. Oh, but in theory, yeah, I just picked up some iron dust. So my idea here is that trees naturally suck stuff out of the ground, so why don't they suck, useful metals out of the ground, store them, in their wood, and then you harvest the wood and, process it, and you get the iron dust in this case. As opposed to the explosion loot, there for each object, the star map has said, oh, well, there's this much % chance of getting a this and a that, and as specified by the loot string. So this weapon is, the idea is my weapon, okay, you might be bare-fisted, you might have a sword, you might have a gun, you might have a shield. I have a hose. You can't see it, but I have it. And when I fire my hose, out comes something which behaves like some sort of fluid or, a gaseous cloud. And it has a muzzle velocity, and it never really slows down. It's not super fast, but it does include my speed. It benefits from my speed at the time that I launch it. And other than that, it's affected by gravity, and it follows the ground like fast lava, maybe. I don't know if this is hot or gassy, some sort of special genetic gas that only affects the bad plants, because I'm terraforming the planet, so I need to get rid of the bad plants and replace them with good plants. I need to change my critters so that they can eat whatever plants are easiest to have around. So there's a state machine for each individual Flora object. That's a hive. It has a different color. Ooh. Blue. These meter colors are my big achievement of the evening, of the week, I guess. It's a little too generous with the loot, I think. But maybe not. Just one step at a time. It is now possible to destroy a Flora object. Some of them, you can't destroy these purple guys, but they each have a life meter, and when they take damage, you generally get to see this little bar on every little unit in the field. But, you know, I have the possibility of way more Flora objects than I need. Got to implement a butterfly node. Well, actually, let's stop. Okay, we're going to put on the Cessna overcoat again. We'll turn our power way up. Well, actually, I guess we should want to run into things while we're in the Cessna. I don't know. I don't think I've plumbed the vehicle mass in. I think it's still using our mass. And I see this kind of like maybe there's some automatic middleware objects just to make it make a little sense. But I don't really want it to be complicated. Or if it is complicated, I want your assistant, Pan, your personal autonomous nanofactory assistant, who is this guy here. Oh, and he can have emotions. He doesn't really have them yet. So he's the one that's actually doing the crafting. When you click on a button to say you want to make something, it's really asking him to make it for you. And if you ask him to make a level 7 item that's made out of, you know, level 6 and below items, he might as well just automatically make everything, right? Rather than just say, oh, you can't make that because you need 3 bracers. And so then you have to go and make a bracer. And then once you've made the bracer, then you go back and say, now I'd like to make the shield. Oh, no, you need a hat. So, okay, so you make a hat, and then you go back and say, now I'd like to make the shield. And it's probably a very important game mechanic that's a frustrating experience, but I kind of see it as the frustration in my concept is going to just be the time it takes. And Pan will do as much as he can at the same time, but he has a certain amount of production energy, which right now I'm calling heat. And over time, I imagine I'll upgrade him so that he gets more heat per minute and thus can manufacture faster and more and bigger. But at any given time, if you tell him to make 2 things at once, he's going to make them more slowly than if you just told him to make 1 thing. And if you tell him to make 1 complicated thing, he's going to automatically schedule the creation of all the sub things down to the simplest things for which he actually has the raw materials. But if he doesn't have the raw materials, he's going to somehow communicate to you, and I'm thinking his little face here will also on occasion appear down here on the inventory button, the Pan button. And maybe even he'll have little cartoon text now saying, you know, I need ore. Because you've told him you want to make a Cessna overcoat, and that requires an airframe, and that requires steel, and steel requires iron, and iron comes from ore. So he can make things once you've got the ingredients, but at the bottom of that pyramid of crafting, there's a bunch of raw resources that really you're the one that collects. I mean, you travel to their location and you conspire to smash them or otherwise collect their resources. I guess we should take off, do some flying. I think we'll need more flaps. But if you have all the resources, then Pan should be able to just make stuff at whatever rate his current heat rate is, and he should keep you informed, you know. I just made another claw hammer. I need 3 more. And probably the really chatty stuff should appear over here somewhere. But I'm just thinking like you decide to check in with him, and he kind of tells you what he just did. You know, you sort of see what he's working on. And there's a filter over here for all items being made, so anything that he's scheduled himself to make will be on this list here, which you can scroll through. I haven't implemented the requiring of the ingredients yet, so it went ahead and said, yeah, I'll make one. So I'm getting it for free, but Pan's going to have to look at these and say, oh, I'm going to need 1 carbon dust, 1 gold dust, 1 white leaf paste, and 1 syrup sap. But if he has a problem, like he's stalled, like he can no longer build anything, like he has heat going to waste, he should definitely tell you that, you know, the thing I need the most is. And change comes from within. I really like those sunrises. I'm not super fan of these gashes in the terrain. I'm really hoping that a lot of them are just a bug. That was just a bug. But there I was going over the edge of the map, and there's still some weirdnesses when I do that. But that I can fix. But stitching the terrain is intellectually difficult or computationally slow. I'm thinking I might also give an option. I mean, so the star map can specify how long an actual day is in real time. This is a couple minutes. But even after that, you may like certain times of day better than others. So I'm thinking of letting you sort of, I'm not sure how I'd take the data, but you know, if you'd like it to be mostly daytime, I could make it so that it goes through the whole day, the same lighting changes, but it maybe lingers at sunset and sunrise, does those more slowly than real life. Hey, kitten. And maybe, you know, nighttime is really short and daytime is nice and long. So like a day has a long sunrise, a long noon, a long sunset, and then a really short night. Because I like the night, but if I let it get dark enough, then the night is too long with it that dark. Now I still haven't put in my second light. So when the sun sets, I just have an ambient light setting, which I've got set to really dark. But I'm thinking of a second light that's either the closest torch or, you know, the player himself somehow casts light, which I think could be cool at night, and then you'd want a long night. And then these things would all be sort of invisible in the dark, but as you turned, there'd be a cone of light projecting out from you. And my lighting calculation would just include that. I mean, arguably, if it only worked at night, I could just do that instead of the sun computation, and it wouldn't really be even more expensive. But I think I can afford both. I would only have to do it for close objects. And I have a pretty easy way of telling which objects are close without having to actually, you know, compute a square root or anything. Okay, well, I hope I didn't just mumble that subaudibly. And I never really made an intro, so this has been a development snapshot for Android game synSpace Drone Runners version 1.10. The cat needs attention.